Hello, my friend. Welcome to the show. I am Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. And I've got a controversial figure on the show today. Controversial figure, at least to some. I know him as a good, God fearing fellow follower of Christ Jesus, and I believe a good mind, a true heart. But in these harsh political times, there are people who are on both sides targeting anybody that they think is not complying or falling in line with the way they want them to do their job, even if it's not the best, most effective way. That's what they want. And they're going to get combative with anybody who says he's not doing it my way. So I can be accused of being that guy. Absolutely. And the first time I had him on my show, his name is Ryan Runco, and he's the head of the Registrar of Voters. He's I forget the official title. I'll let him tell it to you, but he's basically the one that makes sure everybody's vote gets counted and where it goes from there. As I've heard from communists, it doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who's counting the votes. So there's a lot of animus right now, isn't there? There's a whole lot of ill will and bad feelings and not trusting anyone. And frankly, I don't blame them. I don't. We've learned just really since the start of COVID, really since the emergence of President Trump in 2016, that election was tampered with, just not well enough to make sure Trump never served as president. And for 4 years, he pointed out fake media. He pointed out the deep state. He pointed out people who are working nefariously behind the scenes to make sure it's done their way, or you hit the highway, or you wind up getting Hillaried or Epsteined or whatever. It's that bad. It's now a deadly game, politics is. Why? Maybe this woman has an answer.
They can't lose. Because if they do lose, they are all done for a while until they die. Pass away from old age or whatever, or get imprisoned even. I mean, people belong in prison.
Yeah.
So with the mentality of this group that cannot lose without being exposed, I don't see how they let Trump get back in there. And I think he seems like he's in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah.
I'd say he's never looked more mature as a politician. I say he's outshining the entire Democrat Party. Like, I think they're getting exposed left and right. And it'd be wonderful to have him back in office to kind of set things straight. But it's not going to be pretty because they can't lose.
Yeah.
If they lose, people are going to prison.
I'm wearing a hat representing a team in a city that I used to live and work in for many years. I was very, very happy to be a part of the ABC radio and television network, doing the morning show on KSFO 560 AM. It was the very first time that ABC, which was then owned by Capital Cities, which was a great company. But on the left, like they all are, I swear I was the only card carrying Republican in that entire 3-story building at 900 Front Street in San Francisco. And so I got to go to a lot of Giants games, but I've been a lifelong Oakland A's fan. So I'll tell you, my A's friends, that I'm wearing this hat. But I decided to fess up. I'm a Northern California guy. So I'm a little jaded towards my state that I love and I was born and raised in. Didn't grow up in the Bay Area, I grew up down in Bakersfield, which kind of helped me fit in when I lived for a year in Tennessee. They're like, "Are you? Oh, you're from California?" "Yes, I am, but I'm from Bakersfield." "Oh, Merle Haggard, right on." Yeah, absolutely. Buck Owens, yeah. Dwight Yoakam. I I decided to wear this hat though to be true to my school. I am a Northern California guy, and but this city and that Bay Area has dominated the direction of the state of California dismally, horribly, and so has Los Angeles, and so many areas down there as well. And it's such a huge population base that they completely decide the direction of the state, and we conservatives seem unable to even stop it. And then we put rhinos in positions of great power who don't fight. They don't even talk about the election fraud, which, as I said, it's not so important as to who votes, but who's counting the votes. And that's why I have Ryan Ronco on the show today. And I'm looking forward to it because I haven't talked to him in a while, and I know he's kind of busy. It is an election year. So let's find out what's going on in his camp and how things are on his side of the fence right now on Do Not Talk. Hit it!
Yep, here he comes. Riding his trusted steed through the Sierra foothills as he brings you the news. He calls himself
Charlie.
What you doing, Charlie?
Sorry, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. There you are. Look how cute you are. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie. What's with the dark glasses?
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ow, Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
Brought to you by my fine friends at freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. Lee is my middle name, and that can get you access to and into a whole new world of over 400 American-made products, naturally derived, no chemicals. I get all my supplements from there now, and all skincare, shampoo for the home, any kind of cleaner you can think of, all naturally derived, all beautiful for your health, for yourself, for your home, and they have food too, and a lot of it, including grass-fed beef. Just check out the video my friend Ron Lyons made at freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. That's freedomswitchusa.com/LEE. You will thank me for it. As you go there and you find a whole new world of things to buy. It's like Amazon meets Costco. You get in, you become a part of the team. They don't advertise. It's all word of mouth like this, from people like me. And then once you find it, you realize I can fire the big box stores. I can fire the big corporations. I don't need to go to them anymore, give them my money as they turn right around and use it against me. freedomswitchusa.com/LEE. freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. All right, cut the music. Let's get them in, ladies and gentlemen, for your dining and dancing pleasure. Direct from Placer County, which I hear people in the media mispronounce it all the time. It's Placer County. No, it's Placer County. Ryan Ronco. Hello, buddy.
Hey, Charlie. It's so great to see you again.
Man, it's been a while, hadn't it? Last
It
time
has
I had
been.
you on, I was on the radio. So I've been doing this show for 2.5 years now, Ryan. That means I haven't seen you in at least 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's been way too long. Although I do get to see you doing this podcast, and it's awesome. So I'm glad to be
Well,
able
I
to
appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for your support. I know you have to be careful with that, though, because I am an outspoken Christian conservative. And every time you portray yourself in any one certain way, I'd imagine you get a tax for that, don't you?
You know, it's funny because I see my role as speaking to everybody. So when I come on a show like yours, I will get attacks from certain segments of the population, but I also get attacks from the right side of the population when I go and speak to the Democratic Party or whatever. So I must be doing something right if I'm getting attacked by both sides. I guess. I don't know.
You kind of have to. I've been real happy to be part of a group that, unfortunately, the sheriff in your county called, I think, toxic, and that's the Freedom Coalition. They're anything but toxic. They're fantastic people, and you came and spoke there at a very contentious time. That was the when was that? Was that the 2022 election?
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
before the primary, yeah.
And that's what I was talking about in the very beginning. People who, even if you are like-minded, doesn't matter. They're very suspicious and ready to just attack. And especially when it came to the Dominion machines, that's been such a controversy. And since Fox got slapped with a multi-million-dollar fine and fired Tucker Carlson over it, allegedly, and Dan Bongino, it seems to have calmed down a lot. I don't hear people talk, at least in the conservative media, talking about Dominion machines anymore. But I know you, because of the state of California, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but they said, here's 3 companies you can use to electronically count votes, period. You're going to use them. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, you got it right. Here in California, California has a certification process that requires that we counties can only use systems that they certify. And across the country, there are more certified systems, but in California, there are 4. One of them is a proprietary system to LA County. So that's off the table for us to purchase. So we're down to 3. And we chose Dominion, but this was back in 2019, actually, because it was closest to the system that we had previously been using. It mirrored that older system in look and feel for the voters. So we thought, okay, well, this will be an easier transition for them to be able to move into this new system. And then 2020 happens, and people are concerned about the system, and they're concerned that maybe it's hijacked. And before I forget to mention, and I know you'll probably mention this a lot too, we love it when people come down here and check out the system and watch us program the system. And we don't have a vendor or the state or anybody coming in to program our systems. We do it here internally. And so people are welcome to come and watch the process when we do all that stuff. And we can talk about that more if you want to go there.
Yeah, no, I remember you were offering that back then when the suspicion was at its highest. But one thing I did learn about the Dominion machines is they have Bluetooth capability. And
yeah, they say that they do. Some people have said that they do. But here in Placer County, we don't see it. We actually have a monitor that checks for signals like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all of that might be emanating from the machines. It's something that Dr. Douglas Frank mentioned in his Moment of Truth seminar.
I love him.
And so back 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago, when he was speaking, we saw the system. We went out, we acquired one, and we do use that to check for Wi-Fi signals. And we haven't found any coming off of those machines that we have in Placer County, at least. So.
How long of a contract? Because I'm sure everything comes with a contract, so they can raise the price and they can charge you for upgrades.
That's right.
Contract do you have with Dominion?
These systems used to be like the Maytag washing machines, where you buy a system, and the previous system we had for 20 some odd years, 24, 25 years. But this system is under contract. When we purchased it in 2019, it was an 8-year contract. We do have an annual software licensing maintenance contract. So our board of supervisors every year has to update that. And sometimes people think that we're going back to renew the Dominion contract, and we're not. That license goes through 2027. So I would imagine after this series of elections that we're having in 24, we can, the board can certainly talk about getting new systems or different systems. But the people I talk to, they're unhappy about any electronic tabulation. It's not just Dominion, really.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them. And Shasta County, they said, yeah, you know what? We don't care what it costs. We're not doing this. We're going back to paper ballots. And that was Supervisor, is it Cry, right? Isn't that his
Mhm.
name, Kevin Cry?
Yep.
And they immediately attacked him and tried to do a recall of him up there in that area. The left just lost their ever-loving minds because so far they've had a nice little free ride with things seemingly go their way regardless of how many people show up to vote. And a fine example was the recall special election of Governor Hairdo. Now, what is your thoughts on that? Looking back on it now, how honest was that election? Can you tell me?
Yeah, I definitely can. And this is somewhere where I break with, I think, a lot of the people that I don't mind saying I'm a Republican. I'm a rare Republican, I think, as far as registrars go in California, but it's not like there aren't any. But this is kind of where I break from the standard conservative view. As a person that's been involved in elections for 30 years, at least here in Placer County, and I can really only speak intelligently to Placer County because I don't work in Sacramento County, I don't work in LA County, I don't work in San Francisco, but they do follow, or are supposed to follow, the same laws that I do here in Placer. And the way that I saw that election was it was run correctly. We didn't have, taking a step back just to talk a little bit about the electronic voting tabulation that we do here. It's the same type of thing. We have a tabulation system, but we have to verify it with a hand count, an audit after the election. And that audit revealed that the machines counted correctly. Now, somebody like Dr. Frank will say garbage in, garbage out, right? If you got garbage coming in, then you have garbage results. But just talking about the system and the ballots that were programmed, the ballots that were issued, the ballots that were counted, the ballots that weren't used, and all of that stuff equaled in our audit of the election after the fact. So from our standpoint, based on what we know, the election was fine and was not for Newsom's recall. The votes were counted and counted correctly.
That's you.
Yeah,
that's you. That's Placer County.
That's right. That's only coming from my perspective. I do know, though, that there are people that are now thinking it's not the local registrars that are the problem. Maybe it's the state, the deep state, that is infusing the system with more voters, with fake voters, or with voters that they can be able to create ballots when necessary, and then adding that into the system. That would require, as best as I can understand the concept, a lot of people that would be working behind the scenes to be marking ballots and be sending in ballots and faking signatures and all that. So I don't know exactly how that would work either, but from that perspective, that's not something, that would be the garbage in, garbage out argument. So I get that.
So to sum it all up, you did it honestly, the recall election. However, there are, at last count, not counting illegals, about 33 million people in the state of California. But yet in the last election, there were 38 million ballots mailed out. Is that true?
I don't know those numbers to be true, but I do know that there are people that say, hey, look, what's the story with what we in Placer County refer to and what the state refers to as inactive voters? These are ballots these are people that are not getting a ballot, but are still essentially registered voters. They've been moved to this limbo, if you will, because we haven't gotten anything officially from them or from a trusted source that says they need to be canceled out of the system. And so sometimes people will count these people as part of what appears to be the active voter list. And they're not actually getting any voting material. They're not getting a voter information guide. They're not getting a ballot. But but some people to be, they're concerned that those people could just show up and, for all intents and purposes, be able to vote a ballot right there and then. And so people do get concerned about that. Don't know about the 33 million versus 38 million ballots sent out, except for that we do have in some areas of California a population that's on the move. They're leaving, right? Placer's growing, but most of California is shrinking. And so people are being sent ballots. If they don't tell us we're gone, then we're sending ballots somewhere to people that are no longer there. And that could be those numbers as well.
That's for the local election, but then you got the statewide, and wow, what a complete cluster this vote by mail has become, and I believe not by accident. And then, never forget the 2020 election, we had these ballot boxes popping up all over the place, as financed by almost $500 million worth all across the nation by Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook fame. And I kept asking then, why is this even legal? Aren't you tampering with the mail system, which I understand is mail fraud? You're putting out these boxes for people to deposit their ballots, and allegedly and supposedly they're going to get to the right place. Why is this being allowed? How is this even legal? How was that legal? Did you encounter any of that in Placer County? Those boxes?
We did have drop boxes. We still do have drop boxes. It's actually part of state law now that you have to have drop boxes. And there are pros and cons with the whole system. The best thing, and we always tell our voters, the best thing to do is go in on what is traditionally looked as election day and vote in person, right? That's the tried and true method, and most of our voters do that still here in Placer County. It's certainly our busiest day and should be. But 90%, and by most, what I mean is most that heed that information and decide to vote in person. 90% of our voters are voting by mail, meaning that they use a vote by mail ballot to cast their ballot. And it has been even more than 90%. It's gone as high as 95%. Here in Placer, we're actually trying to combat that. And I can talk about that in a sec. But what that Dropbox does is it does avoid the post office. And I got to tell you, Charlie, our post office, as much as I love our post office partners and they work hard at the post office, it's taking longer and longer for ballots that go into the mail stream to get to us. And so if people want to use a vote by mail ballot and put it in the mail stream, it's taking, here in Placer County, it can take 7 days, and for around the lake, because we have part of Lake Tahoe, it can take 10, 12 days for a piece of mail to get from there to my office. The drop boxes are a little bit more immediate. I'm deputizing people that work for me to go and pick those up on a daily basis. So as much as I don't prefer the drop boxes, at least I'm in control of them, and I'm not paying the post office the privilege of returning that ballot back in the mail. We saved about 10 grand just in return mail costs this last election.
Who's paying for the drop boxes now? Not Mark Zuckerberg.
No, Placer County is paying for the drop boxes.
You have to pay for it.
That's right. But we're
it's like you had to pay. You, as in Placer County, had to pay for those Dominion machines. Which, by the way, how much did that 8-year contract cost us? Or you?
I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was about $4 million. Yeah, for machines and then the annual licensing and software and all that stuff.
So even Shasta County, which doesn't have the money of Placer and doesn't have the population of Placer County, that is formidable. Yeah. That is a lot of money that they don't have, and it's being forced on them. You can't blame them for saying, screw you, keep your machines. We're going to do it the old school way. People are going to fill it out by hand. We're going to take it right there, and we're going to count them.
So, yes. And so here's the rub, right? this is maybe the part where you would say, this is why the vote by mail is being encouraged. And that is, we can go back to a system where we are counting at the polling places, but it requires people to be going to the polling places to be effective. Right now, when we're looking at a county like Placer, where 90% of our voters are using vote by mail and only 10% are going to the polls, you can count the poll ballots, but you still need a system to be able to count 90% of what's coming into you. And if you count by hand, you can only start counting by hand on election evening, maybe election morning, but you can't start counting those ballots as they're coming into you, because then you might reveal how the count is going in that jurisdiction, and that's against the law. So you've cut down now the amount of time that you have to be able to count ballots if you go strictly by hand. So that's a problem. Here in Placer County, we're trying to counteract that. We're using what's called Voters' Choice Act, which has a very bad connotation with many people, and I understand why. It means that you have to open up the vote centers before election day. You have to have your locations open a minimum of 4 days and a maximum of 11 days before the election. However, and that's not good, and it's not necessary, and it's a waste of money, quite honestly. The data is out there if people want to see it, by the counties that have been doing this now for 10 years. Nobody comes for those first days. They only come the day before and maybe the day of election day.
Do you have volunteers manning those polling places, or do you have to pay them?
No, we have to pay them, and we do call them volunteers, but they're all paid. However, we try to encourage staffing through our service clubs and our philanthropic organizations here in Placer County, so that we're not paying the individuals, we're actually paying the club, and then that club then uses that money for their scholarships or programs that they're doing in the region, so that money just kind of just filters back into our community that way. And we've gone from, I think we had 8 in the primary service clubs that were staffing a vote center. I think we're going to have 21 of our 29 staffed by service clubs this coming election. So that's a good thing, I think. But what we are also encouraging is, we're calling it Sign, Scan, and Go. But essentially what it is taking your vote by mail ballot that was sent to you at home. If you like the convenience of voting at home because you're comfortable, you have your coffee, you're marking your ballot, you have all your materials around you, great. Go enjoy that comfort. But then get your butt up off your couch, come to a vote center, sign in like you're getting your ballot at the vote center, and then just open your envelope and scan what you voted at home in the convenience of your home. Scan it right there at the vote center.
Transfer it to the actual voter form.
You don't even have to transfer it. We now have a law that allows for you to take that vote by mail ballot from home and scan it right into the system there at the vote center. So it actually now you're becoming an in-person voter as opposed to a vote by mail voter.
I pray that everybody does that. This truly is, and if people in media say this crap all the time, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Okay, Sean Hannity, I get it, but this really is the most important election of our lifetime. I've opened up the chat room. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask them on Facebook. Just put it in the comments and it'll show up, and I'll be able to pass them along to Ryan. But let's you've made it clear, and I appreciate this, because this was one of my questions. If you were to advise anyone who wanted to make sure that their vote was counted legally and properly, how do they do it? You've made that clear, and I appreciate that. And you are saying exactly what I've been saying for several years now. So thank you for that. But here's my question. After the recall election in particular, I didn't get any calls about Placer County, but I did El Dorado, where people were showing up and they were told, oh, you already voted.
Yeah, it's crazy when I've heard stories like that here in Placer too, where people say, I heard somebody say that their vote was already cast for them. And I always turn that question around and I say, okay, well, if that was you, would you just say, oh, okay, I guess I must have voted then and walk away? No, you would come to my office and you would be building the scaffolding to hang me out in front of my office, because there's no way that you're going to just accept that as an answer,
Right.
and just think that everything's okay. So we don't have that. We've never heard of that issue directly from somebody about themselves. We've seen other types of vote fraud, and I can talk about that if you'd like to talk about it more.
Yeah.
But I have not seen the type of fraud where somebody goes into a polling place and they see that somebody has their name on their line.
I personally know people that it did happen to.
Yeah, and I believe that it does happen, but thankfully we haven't seen that here in Placer. And obviously that's a problem with the system that as it's designed now. There could be fixes that need to happen to be able to protect people from that happening. But the system is designed to count one ballot for one person. So when it comes to vote by mail and people are concerned about multiple ballots going out, and they hear stories every election about, I got 5 ballots or I got 7 ballots, that's probably because that person registered a long time ago, then tried to re-register, maybe even attempted to re-register again, or they're online and they hit the button 4 or 5 times. Every time that somebody tries to register, the system will generate a new ballot, but all the previous ballots have been voided. So it's not like if we get a ballot, 5 ballots.
Well, I know someone who got, and he's a staff sergeant in the Army, and very competent. Mm-hmm. And he got 4.
Yeah.
And he'd been living in the same home for about 15 years.
Yeah, it can definitely happen. If they were all addressed to him, then it probably happens when people hear that an election's coming up, they realize, oh my gosh, I was going to change my political party, or I needed to update that thing, that mailing address, that whatever. And then so every time that we get an update, we're going to have to, by law, we have to key that update into our system, and we have to generate a new ballot for that person, voiding out the previous ballots. And people don't know that the previous ballots have been voided. There's no, it's not like the ballot turns green or something happens to it, but we do have a system in place to make sure that only one ballot's getting counted for those voters. The vote fraud that we see is not necessarily that. The vote fraud that we see generally here in Placer County is a ballot or a household where all the ballots come to us signed essentially by the same person. We call it the designated voter. It's essentially, the one person in the family who might care about voting, and maybe the kids or maybe the spouse, they don't really care that much as that person. And that person thinks they're doing a good deed by getting all the ballots together and maybe voting them, maybe not, but, filling them all out and sending them to us. And we do check those signatures. We check every signature on every envelope, every election. It's not a percentage. It's not a random sample. It's not, well, I don't have to worry about Charlie because he votes every election, but this new person that just moved here, I'm going to check their signature. It's literally every single signature. That's open to the public. We're happy to show the public how we do this signature verification. And we do have ballots that don't get counted because the signatures don't match. We had, I can't remember exact number, but it was around 200 to 300 ballots in this last election where the signatures didn't match to our satisfaction. We contact the voter by letter, by phone, and by email. Oftentimes we contact them after the election. So some people, especially low information voters, will say, I don't care, my person won or my person lost, and they don't want to fix it. But we reach out to them to explain to them that there's a process to fix it if they want to fix it. But we're also checking to see if there's vote fraud. And we've had some people tell us, I didn't sign that ballot. It's about 5 or so people in my 30 years that I've been working here. It's not a high number, but we have had some people that have said, I didn't vote that ballot. And so we then can pass that information along to the district attorney for him to prosecute.
Are you a constitutional scholar? Do you know a lot about the U.S. Constitution?
I know some about the Constitution. I would not call myself a scholar.
Are you familiar with when it addresses any kind of question of an election or any kind of this didn't seem right? How are we supposed to react to that?
Well, the Constitution leaves the question of conducting elections to the states. So the states have more when it comes to investigating elections than the federal government does. The federal government does, however, get involved with in different ways, whether it's through the Help America Vote Act or the Civil Rights Act of '65 and pre-clearance laws and all that. They do get involved. I don't want to pretend like they don't, but investigating elections has really been much more here. This is my experience in 30 years, has been much more handled at the local level than it has been at the state or the federal level.
Which is why it is so completely important that everyone votes, because I've heard so many of my own fellow conservatives say, "Why even bother? My vote doesn't count." Being from California, in a national election, maybe it doesn't, but trust me, General Flynn is right. Act locally, it will impact nationally. We have to be taking our responsibility seriously. You and I are both believers and followers of Christ Jesus. Chris Ann Hall threw out some stats a couple of years ago when I was able to see her, and I just love her. She said that a third of the state of California claims to be Christian, yet only about 40% of them are even registered to vote. And when it comes to midterm and primary elections, it's in the teens. We suck. Just the Christian vote alone could turn this whole state around, and we don't. Why, Ryan?
It's a good question, because here, well, according to the state data, now I have to rely on the state data here because we don't internally run any information on these figures. And quite honestly, I don't see it as my role to try to encourage people to register. I want to give them the information so they can make their decisions. I don't think that I should be in the business of forcing somebody to register if they don't want to register.
No.
But having said that, we're second or third in the state in terms of eligible voters who are registered to vote. I think it's like 93% of our eligible voters are registered here in Placer, which is pretty incredible for a growing county, because it means that some people are coming in and bringing their good habits with them. And I haven't even outreached to them at this point, so that's a good thing. But we do have a very high number of eligible voters who are registered, and we're a fairly God-fearing county as well. We do have churches that are pretty successful in this area that are still growing despite some of the numbers that I see nationally where church attendance is declining. So it is, I think, not the same story here in Placer as it is in other areas.
That's good to know. I want to get your reaction to this. Let's watch this together.
Privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
That has to stop. That is the woman running for the highest office in the land saying that any kind of social media needs to be regulated and needs to be shut down and shut up. She's talking directly about X, of course, and rumble.com, which we're on, rumble.com/do-not-talk. You're fighting against that.
Yeah, I believe me, it's the thing that probably outside of maybe personnel issues, as you move up the ladder in any organization, you get the joy of dealing with personnel issues, right? And that's never any fun. But probably what occupies my time more than anything other than that is trying to speak to people about what's happening and what we're doing. And this idea of disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, all that, we don't really worry about that here in Placer County. Are there people that are out there that are spreading rumors or false narratives or getting their information wrong and then posting it? I'm sure that it is. And when we hear about it, or if there's something that we can do about it to, tell people, hey, come in and let's talk about it, then we do that. But really what we concentrate on is a lot of after the fact. People should have the ability, and the Constitution gives us the right to freely assemble and we do have supposedly this idea entrenched in our system of being able to talk and not be censored. And we're about that here. We will talk about what we do, and we're happy to show people what we do. If they have concerns, if they hear something on X, or if they see something on Insta, Face, whatever, then
Face, exactly.
Come on in, and we're happy to talk about it.
X twit, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But
But
I love it.
we're not gonna ban the discussion, because honestly, we find out very interesting things here. If we were to assume that everything that we heard on Gateway Pundit is incorrect or false, or we don't need to listen to that, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. We need to listen to everything and either respond to it because we are concerned that could be true, and that could be a hole, and that could be a defect, and we need to shore that up, or we run it through the filters of our knowledge here, and we say, no, that's not a concern. People are making that up or misunderstanding what we do, and we can then dismiss it. But we're big believers here in the freedom of ideas and letting people be able to ask us those dangerous questions.
This will be the midterm 2026 election. Your contract with Dominion will be up. Any light at the end of the tunnel that we might follow in the footsteps of Shasta County and say, forget it? Even if we're doing it right, everyone else is doing it wrong. We don't want to keep spending this kind of money because it's millions of dollars to have that machine thrust upon the county by the state. What can you tell us about the possibilities of maybe going back to how it used to be?
So this is another place where I break with that type of talk. I actually don't mind the machines, and I believe that the machines, or at least here how we have them set up in Placer County, that the machines are counting correctly, and that we can trust the count that comes out of the machines.
Then why are they necessary? Why are they necessary? Why not save those millions of dollars? I don't know how much it would cost you to count ballots by hand and to make sure everybody had a printed out ballot like it used to be. And even if we open the polling centers early, more than just one day, to make it a little easier, okay. Why jack with the machines? Why mess with them? Why keep them?
So until we can get the numbers back to 90% of us voting at the vote centers or the polling places and 10% using a vote by mail ballot, we have to use those machines because of the volume of the ballots that we have to count here at the one single location.
You're going to be counting them, period, whether they come in person and fill it out or whether they're mailing it in. You're going to have to count it anyway.
Yeah. So if you're thinking 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, the way things used to be, where most people were voting at a polling place, and Then they closed down the polling place, and at the end of the night, they counted the ballots there, and they called in those results to a central location. That was dispersed labor across a big jurisdiction where they were able to get 90% of the work done that night because that's where the ballots were being cast. Now, with the ballots coming here to one location, and we don't have the ability to have 200 machines counting ballots, but we have one machine counting the ballots. It's harder to be able to get that done hand counting in one day. And our ballots are complicated. Our ballots
We're not getting it done in one day now anyway. So
That's right.
I think people would give you a pass on that.
And to be fair, we weren't getting it done in one day even 30 years ago when I was hired as a young little Ryan, 26 years old here at this elections office.
When you had hair?
I did have hair. I got a picture of me with my hair, by the way, right over here. I'd go get it if I didn't have to get off camera. But it was, those were, even those days, we were taking weeks to count ballots. And we were still, it was, the process is, we want to actually run a test. We've talked about it internally where we would, have a certain number of ballots and we invite people in to do a hand count to show the public how difficult this process of counting ballots by hand would actually be. It's not easy. It does take time.
Of course. But Ryan, you did say you count each ballot anyway, and then you put it in the machine. So it's already being done. You said the machine just verifies that the count was accurate. Okay, great. Well, then
it's actually the reverse. We use the machine to count the ballots, and then we go back by hand and count the ballots to verify the machine count. But yes, we do that.
Okay,
but we don't
either way, those votes are getting counted by hand. So why is the machine necessary?
Only a percentage. So it takes us after the election, and we spend about 2 weeks to 3 weeks doing a hand count, and we usually count by hand about 10% to 25% of the ballots that were cast in the election to verify the machine counts. We try to do, we could do it a lot less, but we like to hand count here because we try to count as many machines by hand as we can. So we hand count a lot more than maybe our neighbor counties hand count. Having said all of that, the process of hand counting, we have maybe 10 teams going for 2 to 3 weeks, and we only get through 10 to 25% of the ballots. We would need a lot more teams. We need a lot more people for a long period of time, not just a few days, but committed to being here for a month. We would need a larger facility to do it, maybe like the fairgrounds or something like that. And we need to have a place where we could secure the ballots when we were not hand counting.
Wouldn't that still cost less than the millions of dollars for the machine?
It's a good question. That's why we want to do it and do a test run to see exactly how accurate and how much it would either save or not save if we were to do it by hand. Right now, we just don't have the data. It's easy for me to say, as a guy who does trust the machines, oh, it's too expensive. I don't really know. So we do need to test it. But but we're in the process of trying to figure out if we can do that in 2025, where we can get enough of a data set to be able to see, okay, we need this X number of people for Y number of days, and it would cost us Z dollars, and be able to tell that to the community.
The machines are mandated by the state of California, which I have not trusted for quite a while now. It's been a super majority of Democrats running my once golden state into the ground. And I don't want anything to do with anything that they seem to think is most important for them to continue winning elections. It was my understanding that you're still hand counting every vote, but now, after talking with you, it's just a portion, just to kind of get a gauge of how accurate has the machine been up to this point. I thought that every vote was hand counted.
Yeah, no, I apologize. It's not every vote, but it is. In one election, during the recall election, we counted every vote that passed through a machine. In some elections, we count by hand, not necessarily the machines, but but a number of ballots in each precinct or something. Just we try to test it, throw it around because we're looking for the opportunity for the machines to be inaccurate, and we haven't yet found that. And every hand count that I've been a part of in my 30 years, the machines have counted accurately. But again, I recognizing that there's a garbage in, garbage out.
I admire you for meeting with Dr. Douglas Frank.
Yeah,
I admire the man tremendously. I've heard him speak several times. He's been on my show twice. I love the research he put into it, and he's not getting paid for most of that. Going around these speaking engagements, he's like, you got a group, I'll come speak to them. Just put me up in a hotel and buy me a couple of meals. And if, it's not in my area, pay for my transportation there. But he does not ask for a fee to go speak at places. And he's got a couple coming up in the Bay Area in just a couple of weeks, which is great. If you get an opportunity, or look him up, Dr. Douglas Frank, and see the I lost Ryan for a second. Oh, there you are. You're back. Good. Oh shoot. What's going on? Ryan, we're getting messed with.
I think it's obviously the deep state. They found us, Charlie.
I'm not kidding, because I wouldn't touch anything. This is that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, sorry about that. I hope I'm sure I froze in an awkward position where I looked just absolutely crazy.
Your face was like this for about 4.5 minutes. It was funny. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. The bottom line is, I know that you're doing the best you can do with the hand that is dealt you. Mm-hmm. But you've given us some very valid information, and you've validated my point of stop. And I'm going to share some information with you here and do what you want with it. But stop voting by mail. Stop it. I have friends who work with the U.S. Postal Service who have confided in me that there are letter carriers who are all on board with their cushy little government jobs and their nice paycheck and their unrealistic retirement that is not sustainable. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure, if you're a conservative, because we're all about conserving tax dollars and being responsible with that money. That's just one of the many things that we believe we should conserve and be careful with, and not just flippant and spending everybody else's money to get something that you deem a worthy cause. Great, give your money to it. Don't make the rest of us give to it. That's what a conservative is to me. And there are conservatives whose ballots, when they vote by mail, never make it to the post office, because these government employees, you got a flag flying in front of your house, you got a Trump 2024 sticker on your vehicle, and that letter carrier sees it, or you're in a really super condensed conservative area of voters, your ballot will not make it to that post office. It's going to get lost. I have friends, again, in the Postal Service who have confided in me that there's a lot of letter carriers who are pulling that shit. And that infuriates me, because that's tampering with the mail. And you and I would go to prison if we did something like that. Here's letter carriers doing that. Don't vote by mail. Go ahead and fill out your ballot, but you take it in and you swap it for a hand count, and you tear that sucker up, or you write void across it, and you vote in person. Please, I implore you, conservatives, do that. And now we know that in Placer County, how many days are the polling places open early?
So we have to have 29 of these vote centers. A few of them, I believe it's 8 or 9 of them are open for 11 days. And we have that information in our voter information guide. The rest of them open up at the 4-day mark. So they open on Saturdays, essentially, and they're open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Placer. And then, of course, Election Day is still the traditional 7 in the morning to 8 in the evening. Get in there, no excuses. Bring your vote by mail ballot with you. If it's already pre-marked, like we were talking about before, you sign in to make sure that you haven't voted somewhere else. We got to make sure that you haven't, cast a 14 or 15 other ballots, which we don't believe that you did, but we have to sign you in, and then you just literally scan it in front of you so that you can see that your ballot was counted. You don't even have to worry about the post office at that
When
stage.
I went to the polling place, and I used to go to a church when I was down in the Fresno area, that turned into a polling place every year or every election year. And I love those people there. They were wonderful. Most of them were well advanced in age, and may God bless them for volunteering and showing up there and doing that, because they love their country and they love our system, our constitutional republic that affords us at least one vote, at least one say. Don't thwart that. Don't throw that away. But I had to show my license to prove I was a resident.
Yeah.
When did that end?
It's so it hasn't happened the 30 years that I've worked in Placer County. So it has been at least 30 years that we haven't had to show a license. But to be fair, there are some voters that do have to show ID. Federal law does require us to, when we get a new voter in our system, we have to check whatever information they gave us to make sure that it's correct. So that includes driver's license number and social security number. So when we get that information on a voter registration card, we do send that information to the DMV, to the Social Security Administration, and we check to make sure that those people are not just who they say they are, but they are citizens. And when we get that information back from those agencies saying, yes, they have documentation showing their citizenship status, because you probably remember when you got a driver's license, you had to bring your birth certificate to show that you're a citizen, all that stuff. If they say they're citizens, then great. If they don't fill out a card with that information, so somebody fills out a voter registration card with no driver's license and no social security number, state law, federal law says, okay, we're going to register those people, but they must show their driver's license or other appropriate ID as determined by the state when they vote. And we had three ballots that we did not count last election because those people never showed us the appropriate ID. They can vote a provisional ballot until they can show us the ID, but they never showed us the ID. So
it was no accident that the last term of Governor Jerry Brown, he did the motor voter law. First, he made it legal for illegals to get driver's licenses. And at the time, I was on the radio and I was like, why? And then it became clear why. Because he's going to say, okay, now you have a driver's license. You can get registered to vote right there automatically at the DMV. Just check this box. So now illegals are voting. And we don't seem to have any way of stopping that, do we?
Well, like I just said, if there was an illegal alien who completed
the ID, they had the ID, even if they're not here legally.
But it's not just based on the ID, right? So SB 60, the law that allowed for non-citizens to get a driver's license, it puts those people into a separate category. As I understand it, the state doesn't give us the citizenship data, but we have to rely on Social Security Administration, DMV, to be able to get that data. My understanding of the driver's license with the ID is their data, their numbers, their information is separate from the people that actually showed their birth certificate when they got their license. So, and we do have registrants that we will send to these entities, and we'll get information back saying that person, we do not have anybody in our database that matches that data set that we just got. So we can't register them, and they stay in what's called a pending status. And so I do believe that the system is working in that regard. Are illegal aliens getting registered and voting? Certainly. There are some jurisdictions that even allow it. Down in San Francisco, I believe that they allow for non-citizens to vote in local elections.
They're running for office.
Yeah.
In places like San Francisco.
Yeah. And we haven't, if we had direct access to some of that data, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about the system. But I do know that we will get data. We send data to these agencies. We'll sometimes get data back saying that person is not registered until we get more information from them on their status. So the system is at least working on some superficial level.
Because of you. Because
Well,
you're
we're trying
going
to-
that extra mile. But there's a whole lot of registrar voters and directors who are in well-ensconced blue areas who are like, that's working for us. We don't care.
Yeah, I don't work there, so I can't speak to
I
it.
know you know. I know. I get it. I think the point that I'm trying to get to is if you're going to stay in California, I hope you move to an area like Placer County. At least for now, there's good people running the show. Or Shasta County, places like that. But I'll tell you what, it seems like such an uphill battle and a losing one at that, that I don't blame a lot of my own fellow Californians for bolting. They're just freaking getting out. But the sad part about that is most of them are the ones who think the way I do. I won't speak for you, but and they're leaving. They're leaving us to continue this fight. And what they don't seem to grasp is no matter how safe they think they are in their little red area, as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. And if this state collapses, which seems to be the goal, you don't get to usher in your new world order and your one world government as long as you have the United States of America standing in the way. And the best way to take down a powerful nation like the U.S. is to take down financially and fiscally the most powerful state in the nation, and that's California. Take it down. As California goes, the whole rest of the nation starts collapsing. That's me. I am saying this, not Ryan Ronco, but I really believe that's the ultimate goal. And it's sad and it's sick, and I'm way too stubborn to leave. I'm going to keep fighting as long as I can, my friend. So you coming on this show just means everything to me, and I hope people appreciate it, and I hope people appreciate you, and I think you're doing a fine job, considering what you have to work with. I disagree with you on the machines. I hope we get rid of them. At least I hope you get rid of them in Placer County, and we get rid of them all throughout the state. But I know it's not going to happen because there's too many other counties who are like, oh, they're all on board with it. This is great. This is easy. This costs us how many millions? We don't care. It's not our money. And elections are going our way.
Well, it's an honor to be able to do this job, Charlie, and it's an honor to speak to you. I'm happy to be able to have any time I can with you and encourage people. If you don't trust it, come down, talk to us about your concerns, your questions. We're here. I don't get anointed this job. I have to run for it.
It's an elected position. That's right.
It is. So I rely on the fact that the people want me here and I want to answer questions. So I want to build trust in this system so that people feel like, okay, I'm going to vote. I want to make sure, even if nationally that vote matters less, the local votes are super important. And we got a lot of races, school districts, special districts, city councils that need your participation. So
exactly right. Get involved, please. And you probably need some help. And like you said, they're called volunteers, but they get paid for coming down to work in elections. Election poll workers, in particular, and watchers. I think that's a volunteer position, though, to be a poll watcher. But that is how important is that? How crucial is that? How much are poll watchers actually helping?
It's critical. There are, as much as it's difficult to sometimes answer people's questions or have them feel like that they're they need to raise questions in the system. Somebody needs to watch me. Somebody needs to watch the government and ensure that the government is doing its job and doing it correctly, doing it well, and doing it for the people. And so poll watchers provide that opportunity. And there's outfits out there like Election Integrity Project California who will bring people on, train them to be a poll watcher, and then send them out. Maybe not here in Placer County always. Maybe they go to Sacramento County or El Dorado or somewhere else. But oftentimes when we need help in the polls to actually work, we turn to our local Election Integrity Project California chapter to ask them, hey, do you got some people you can send us so that we can be able to have more people working at the facility? So we do work with them. We also work with True the Vote, by the way. We just had a volunteer reach out to us with information after looking at our voter registration and said, hey, we think that this is not right. These people may need to come off the rolls. And we saw that she was working with old data. So we gave her brand new data. We can't just give data away, but we sold her new data to be able to work from so that we could work collaboratively. And so the same thing here. If people are listening to this message and they want to work because they think that the system is screwed up, we want you. You're going to come and have a front row seat on democracy and see how people are trained to be able to work at in our vote centers, and that the system is protected. There's a lot of chain of custody. There's a lot of checks and balances in the system. And we want you to be able to serve. We do have a lot of places that are already filled, but it's always hard to find poll workers up in Tahoe. It's always hard to find poll workers in certain segments of our county. So
do you have to live in that area? Shoot, I'd love to spend a few days up in Tahoe.
There you go. You don't have to live there, but we're not going to put you up in the North Star Ritz-Carlton though. But yes, you are. You don't have to live in the county. You do have to be a California voter, but generally speaking, there are very few requirements to be able to be a poll worker. We will train you, and we will make sure that you know what you're doing. But we'd love to be able to have you. When,
where, how? How do we do that? How do we get on board?
The best way is just to call our office at 530-886-5650. Again, 530-886-5650. Or shoot us an email.
Hang on a second. For those who are watching live right now and not on Rumble, say it again. Say it a little more slowly. People, if they're not ready to write something down. 530 area code.
That's right. The area code's 530. And then the number is 886-5650. 886-5650, or election@placer.ca, like California, .gov, like government. And again, election, no S at the end, just election@placer.ca.
The word at, not the symbol.
That's right. The at symbol, Placer, election at symbol, placer.ca.gov. And
that's the email address. What's the website though? What's the website?
Website is also easy. It's placercountyelections.gov.
Elections. Placer County Elections.gov.
That's correct, sir. And we have information there. You can sign up there, but you can also just call us and we'll walk you through it. There's also other things that you can do, transporting stuff, being here to maybe be one of those people that checks signatures or that helps to process the vote by mail ballots and all that. And if you don't want to work it, but you just want to come by and for the day and see it, then come on through. We'll take you on a tour. We'll show you what we're doing.
This is fantastic. Get involved. There's no better and more important time or important election than this year. And the fact that you just gave me over an hour of your time during an election year means everything to me, my friend. Thank you, Ryan Ronco.
You bet, Charlie. Take care.
Yes, sir. I am Charlie Simons, and there you go. You just got some extremely important information and some insights that maybe you didn't have before. And I hope it helps you. And I hope you get more involved than ever before. I really do. It's a crucial time. And I also hope that you support this show and me by getting involved with an all-American made, an American-run family corporation over 30 years out of Idaho Falls, Idaho. They're also now in Tennessee and in Missouri. Make their own products, over 400 of them. Everything from stuff for your body inside with supplements, vitamins, outside skincare, shampoo, all kinds of things you can think of, really. And things for your home, and food, even, including grass-fed beef. It's imperative that you go to freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. That's freedomswitchusa.com/LEE. Sign up, watch that video from my friend Ron Lyons, and he'll explain everything, how it all works. It's like Costco meets Amazon, and fire the big corporations, fire the big box stores. Get what you need now at freedomswitchusa.com/LEE. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. Most importantly, though, America bless